Cool. And you can show slides, share screen, whatever you want to do. And let us know if you want us to do anything, any introductions or anything about EELS, but I assume Isabella already introduced all of EELS and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen here. All right, I think I'm sharing. I'm not 100% sure. Trying to get to my presentation. There we go. And put that there. All right, cool. So just introduction wise, I guess a little bit about me. From Long Island, grew up in Riverhead on the East End, and went to high school in the Bronx. Actually, I went to Fordham Prep, and then graduated from Washington and Lee University with a BA in Environmental Studies, and did a bunch of fisheries internships and stuff while I was in college. So that's what this one picture over here, or actually both of these pictures, are from a Keck Geology internship that I feel like I peaked kind of. It was a really, really cool internship on looking at coral reef species decline and some of the different drivers that may be behind that in reef in San Pedro, Belize, which is really cool. We got to write an abstract and present it at a conference, the American Geophysical Union meeting in California, which was a really, really cool experience. And then love fishing, crabbing, clamming, anything outdoorsy. I'm actually going to be going camping later despite the rain, although definitely having some second thoughts. And I'm currently in a PhD program at Stony Brook right now, studying marine science and specifically looking at the environmental impacts of offshore wind energy, which is what this the one poster on the left is actually. I did my senior capstone on that, and so I'm hoping to translate that into actual research as a PhD student. And thalassophile, if you don't know, just someone who loves the ocean. But yeah. What about? I'd love to hear though. I feel like some traditional presentations and stuff like that, they don't really, it's like questions all at the end, but I'm very much don't mind being interrupted or anything like that. So if anyone ever has a question, please just don't hesitate to ask. But I'd be curious to hear maybe from y'all what some of the things that you're interested in, whether it's environmental or within the realm of STEM, anything like that. But yeah, if maybe people want to go around and just like say, I don't know, name and something that you're interested in environmental wise.
Well, you're going again.
Oh man. Like what are some of the like basic stuff you studied like when you first started?
Yeah, for example, any of the activities we did that you liked. I know you're nervous. Yeah, like water quality monitoring, that kind of thing.
Cool.
What is Wells? All
right, great job.
What was it?
Are we going down the line?
Yeah.
A little bit louder. I don't know if AG can hear you.
Yeah, it's a little bit louder.
I am interested in biology concerning animals.
Cool.
Guys, so I'm gonna just for the speakers in here, because we have them in multiple places, anytime multiple people are talking, it should be hard for AJ to hear. So just for this part, I would say try to do one mic, do real quick, and then you can do your side conversation. What's the question? AJ?
Yeah, just your
Like
name and something you're interested in, just in terms of environmental anything.
My name is Bonnie, and something I'm interested in is like mostly with animals.
Okay, cool.
My name is Christina, and I'm interested in seeing.
My name is Yadi, and I'm interested in marine animals.
Me too.
My
My name is Alicia, and I'm just interested in learning about.
Cool.
My name is Pramesh, and I'm interested in marine biology.
Let's go.
My name is Rahima, and I just like nature. So I decided.
Cool.
I'm sorry, I'm interested in biology.
My name's Emily, and I'm interested in. Oh, I thought you were.
I'm not gonna go, I'm a teacher.
My name is Aisa, and I'm interested in birds. My name is Kat, and I'm interested in neuroscience and environmental science.
My name is.
Very cool.
My name is. My name is Efren, I'm interested in climate change.
Cool. Let's go to.
Oh my gosh, fine. I'm Isabella. I'm interested in, I studied ornithology. I love being an environmental science teacher. And I hope to pursue both.
Awesome. I think it's cool just to get a sense of what everyone's interested in, just because I think obviously science is super interdisciplinary. There's a lot of different avenues that you can pursue and a lot of fields that more or less they'll come together in a lot of different and kind of interesting ways. So I think it's just interesting to hear what you guys are interested in, and to encourage you to continue to pursue some degree or path in the sciences. I know we're focusing on renewables, which I'll get into in a second, but yeah, cool to hear what you guys are into. So speaking of renewables, kind of a nice simple slide here with some fun figures. So obviously we know renewable energy is taken from natural sources and replenished at a higher rate than they're consumed. That's why they're renewable, and it's exciting to see some of the different projects that are up and coming, especially wind. It's my personal favorite. But solar, geothermal, biomass, and even hydro or wave energy are all different forms of technologies that are being developed in a lot of different places throughout the world, in some faster than others. And it's encouraging to see as we try to find more sustainable ways to exist on the planet. And so even just in New York by 2030, I think we're supposed to which is a very ambitious goal, we're supposed to make a pretty significant conversion to reliance on renewable energies, with a majority of that power coming from solar and wind being installed in commercial settings or commercial operations. And so for getting into renewable energy, what's one of the things that I think is pretty cool is there's an unbelievable amount of money that's going into offshore wind energy specifically, but even solar, as more states are allocating funding to several different state and federal run programs. So the US Department of Energy, working with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, they kind of tag team responsibilities to get a lot of offshore wind projects up and running. And I also included just some basic stats on the employment opportunities that are also coming with that, where from operating manager to some sort of a research specialist, to even field assistants who go out with other experts and stuff in the field to try and find sites where this might be a really good opportunity for solar or for wave energy or for offshore wind as well. And so in terms of employment opportunities, it's pretty significant and encouraging to be a part of something that's ideally green, right? But yeah. And so offshore wind specifically, it's pretty cool. I'm actually waiting to hear from NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. They're going to release a bunch of really boring paperwork and hundreds of pages of documents about these 5 specific offshore wind sites that you can see here on the map. And it's exciting because once they kind of release more information about the either confirmation or decline of whether or not those wind farms are going to be built, it kind of dictates how funding is going to go. And like I said, there's a lot of money going into it. And so the opportunities to get involved with environmental stuff, but also get paid somewhat decently, which usually isn't the case, especially when you're doing research, is exciting. And specifically, I did a little bit of research on the South Fork Wind Farm right over here near Montauk and Long Island, and yeah, really excited for more information to come out there. But also cannot encourage you guys enough to, if you have any interest in it, definitely worth pursuing, because there's a lot of money coming through that particular area. But yeah, super simple and short presentation. I also did put together a list of just resources for high school students, and then assuming that some of y'all are probably considering college and things like that, some college scholarships and stuff like that as well, that I hope gets shared with you, and if nothing else, maybe point you toward a resource you might not have considered otherwise. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer questions and just open up general discussion. But yeah.
Do we want to, Greg Kiss joined us, do we want to do his presentation and then do general questions for both folks?
We can do both. I don't know about AJ. AJ's fine with it. So yeah, I'll also say yay. Thank you, AJ.
All right, let me stop share here. Okay.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Great. Okay, well, I'm very excited to be joining you guys. I wish I was with you. I mean, the Bronx River House is happens to be one of my favorite places in the world, partly because I designed it and partly because of the amazing things that happen there, like including today's event. So I'm on the road in Pennsylvania somewhere, so hopefully I'm not going to lose you. Let me share my screen, and hopefully you guys can see this, right? Let me start up. Okay, so I want to just show you in just a few minutes some highlights of my career as an architect, and try to kind of touch on how architecture, building, construction, infrastructure affects so many sectors of society, so many trades, jobs, specialties, and so on. So just to start with this image, this was a project I did in California in 1990, which was a very long time ago. And this was actually the first building in the US, the first commercial building to really integrate solar photovoltaics into the building itself. So most of the black glass you see in this picture are solar panels that are generating electricity, but they're also serving as the outer facade material of this building. So they're doing more than one thing at once, which has all kinds of benefits, because it means that instead of just paying for a solar panel that you're mounting on the roof or in the backyard, you're also paying for a piece of facade material, and you're therefore saving money, you know? So there's some really interesting kind of symbiotic benefits that you can get from integrating solar and even other renewables into buildings and infrastructure. And this was one of the first projects that did that. This is another picture of that same project. This is from inside looking out. And here you can see that we have, in addition to the solar panels in the facade, we did a big skylight in this room, and the skylight actually combined solar panels in the corners. So the big panels in the four corners are photovoltaic panels. And then the rest of the glass, the kind of X shape in the middle, is normal skylight glass. And when you do skylights, you normally make them pretty, not very transparent, because you don't want too much light and heat to come into the room. And so the glass you see here is 20% transparent. The solar panels that you see were a standard panel that were only about 5% transparent. And at the time I was thinking, well, let's go ahead and do this because we want to show the product. This was actually a factory where they made these panels, show it being used in this way. But what turned out to be a very pleasant surprise is that you can see here the light coming through the solar panels turned out to be actually very more pleasant, a nicer light level than the light coming through the skylight glass. So this just sort of continued that idea of multiple functions. You have a solar panel that is also a skylight. So at the same time it's generating electricity, it's emitting daylight into a room, so you can turn off the lights and doing it in a very comfortable kind of way. So that, as I say, was a very pleasant surprise. And then since I was one of the first architects doing this kind of thing, got involved in various projects, interesting projects. This was 4 Times Square in around 2000. That was, when it was built, it was kind of billed as the first green skyscraper. We didn't design the building, but we did do the solar integrated facade. So the kind of black glass panels you see in 4 Times Square facade are photovoltaics that we designed and managed the installation of, and so on. A lot of other kind of unexpected projects came up because of my involvement with solar. I ended up actually co-founding a company called Native American Photovoltaics in the early 2000s, which installed, maintained and financed solar systems for off-grid homes on the Navajo reservation. And this is one example of a structure we did that was enough to power a house that was many, many miles away from the nearest power line and was never going to get power in the normal way. And we also actually, in that process, we founded a local company, trained a crew of local Navajo people. You can see that's me in the white t-shirt there with some of the local crew. And this was a school project we did where we created a kind of an outdoor classroom with a solar roof. And yeah, that was really a fascinating project. And then other opportunities kept coming up in my career, based partly really on this association with renewable energy. So this was a housing project in Holland, a town called IJsselstein in Holland in about 2003. And this was a really interesting project, just amazing to work over there in Holland, where they have a very sort of creative mindset about how you build things generally. So each house in this small set of row houses has an element that you can see the kind of the black rectangular volume is clad in several different kinds of solar panels. There's conventional ones. There's some that are partly transparent to let light inside the building. And there's also solar thermal panels that make hot water directly from the sun. And those are the ones, if you look at like the upper right corner of each of these solar boxes, those are the solar thermal panels. So this was a really interesting project culturally and in every way. Another project a couple of years later, this was in Panama. This is a building for the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute, which does all kinds of amazing stuff, because in Panama, there's all kinds of ecosystems very close to each other. So this building was the first real net zero building we did. So that glass roof you see is the only source of energy. It's solar photovoltaics integrated as the roof. The building is classrooms, laboratories, and administrative space, and it gets all its energy from the solar roof. Also gets all its water from the solar roof, because we actually collect rainwater from that roof and store it for use in the building. So then getting back to closer to home, this is Bushwick Inlet Park. These are last couple of projects, are more recent ones. This was completed in about 2014 and was a very sustainable building that uses a lot of different types of sustainable technologies like ground source heat pumps, rainwater catchment systems. So on the park side of the building, we have this green roof that comes up and over the building. At the top of the roof, you can walk up the roof, and there's a playground and so on the way up there. That structure at the top has solar panels on top, so that's a shade structure. That provides about a third of the energy this building uses. And as I said, there's other elements here like the ground source heat pumps and things that make it more efficient, so we use less energy to begin with. And then also, as I said, there's a rainwater harvesting system that that irrigates all of the grass roof plus the surrounding landscape without using city water. So that's another very important sustainable issue. Anyway, really fun to do this project. This is a view of that solar shade canopy at the top of Bushwick Inlet Park. And then finally, I just want to finish up with where you all are. This is Bronx River House from above. And, you know, this was, this project actually had a lot of similar kind of features to Bushwick Inlet Park that I showed you previously. And by the way, I want to say that both the New York City Parks Department, as well as, of course, the Bronx River Alliance, have been amazing clients to work for and work with, because really, it's great when you work with people who really want to do things that are environmentally beneficial, but also functionally beneficial. So they're going to work well for the Bronx River Alliance, they're going to work well for the community, and so on. So this whole project has been an amazing privilege for me to be involved in. Anyway, so in this aerial shot, you can see, obviously, there's solar panels on the roof, and those are enough to provide pretty much all of the energy used in this building. This building also has ground source heat pumps. They're a little bit different from Bushwick Inlet Park. Bushwick Inlet Park, we had 24 500-foot deep wells to get at the sort of stable ground temperatures that make it much more efficient to heat and cool the building. In this project, because we didn't have as much space around the building to work with, we have 2 wells, each of which are 1,500 feet deep. So that's more than a quarter mile deep. And that is where we sort of take heat out in the winter to heat the building with, and then we take heat out of the building in the summer and put it down in those wells. And these are really much more efficient ways to heat and cool buildings. Generally, the solar panels I mentioned, and the other aspect of this building that was kind of innovative is that we have this sort of double layer facade. So you see there's the metal mesh wall that surrounds the building. And when the building gets closed, it's very secure. You can be confident nobody's going to get in there. But that mesh wall serves another function too, which is we're growing vines on it, as you can probably tell. And the idea of that is to actually create a double layer facade system. So this picture is a section as if you cut through part of the building. So on the left, you see there's that metal mesh screen wall with vines growing on it. And then on the right next to it is the outer wall of the building itself, where those shingled panels, those shingled cement board panels, there's irrigation lines that run underneath each one. And so the idea, and that's a very experimental part of this building, by the way, but the idea is that between the vines on the outside and then growing moss or other things on the inside, you are creating a living facade that will actually serve the function of a forest. Like if you walk into a mature forest on a hot summer day, the temperature in there will be several degrees cooler than it is outside, because there's many layers of leaves that are transpiring water and creating oxygen and doing all kinds of ecological services, creating a microclimate for that forest. So the intention of the design of this building is to have the living parts of this facade create a microclimate for the building that will make it a little bit cooler in summer and improve air quality and stuff like that. So all of that integrated together. And I just want to finally mention toward the right side of this section, you can see that where we have the solar panels, they are in these roof monitors. And if you look up, you can see the roof monitor, right? So on the north facing side of the roof monitor, we have windows. So you get indirect daylight coming in, and some of those windows open so you can use them for ventilation. But then the sloping south facing part of the roof monitor is where the photovoltaic panels are installed. And that angle just gives them good output and that kind of thing. So using a combination of daylighting and solar photovoltaic generation and so on. So and this is a picture of those from the top. So this is my last picture. We don't have a lot of time, but I just want to say that, as an architect, architecture is an interesting profession because we get to design stuff, but we also really, one of the most important things we do is coordinate many other disciplines, and we work with all kinds of other people. So we work with engineers, structural engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and so on. And in projects like this, where we're trying to make building be actually not just reducing the environmental damage of a typical building, but making a building that, if it can create, say, as much energy as it uses from solar or even more, you have a building that has the potential to improve the environment it's in. And this is the direction that the industry is going, and this is the direction that we all have to go in, really, in order to create a workable environment for all of us in the future. So, I've been very lucky because the kind of work I do gives one an opportunity to take steps to improve the environment, but also to do it in ways that are hopefully interesting, functional, beautiful. It gives you an opportunity to work with designers, with installers, contractors, maintenance people. All of these people are involved in the march toward sustainability and environmentally positive buildings and infrastructure. So I think that's my last, image. So thanks. And again, I'm so happy to see you all in the River House.
So Isabella, do you want to moderate
Yeah, I
questions?
can moderate. So hi, I'm Isabella. I'm the education assistant. I help lead EELS, and I want to know do you guys have any questions? I have a couple questions, but I know that it might be hard to put you guys on the spot.
How long it is
To install them. So the question is how long it takes to install and get a functioning solar panels.
Okay, is that for me? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the great things about solar is that it's a very modular technology, a very flexible one. So basically you start with a solar panel that's, maybe 400 watts or 300 watts or however big it is. And you hook it together, you put it on a support structure, you wire it together with some other number of panels. And then usually what you do is connect that to an inverter, which is an electrical device that changes the DC, the direct current output of solar panels, to AC, which is what the grid has. And so all of that can be done very quickly. Like if you're talking about, if you want to install solar on the roof of a conventional building, you can, in fact, I did this on my, I used to have a townhouse in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. And we had a company called Brooklyn Solar who came and did a terrific job of handling all the permits and everything and getting ready to go. And then they installed enough solar on the roof of our townhouse to generate about half of all the power we used. It took them less than a day to do it. And, putting the solar on the roof, that was the simple part. The hardest part was actually like running conduit through the house, getting down to the basement where the electrical meter is, So that's one of the beauties of many types of renewable energy is that they are, many of them are kind of modular and if done right, can be very simple and quick to do. And it's actually very important that we install them quickly and efficiently so that they don't cost much, because we need to make sure that the world can afford to move to this type of energy.
Thank you. What's the next question?
If there's a power outage with River House,
Did you hear that?
Could you repeat it? Yeah, sorry.
I can repeat it if you want. if there's a power outage, does River House still have energy? Do you have like a generator somewhere?
Okay, that's a really good question. We designed it in order to be able to do that, but the answer is right now, no. And the reason for that is that there are a lot of regulations when you install solar or wind within a city or wherever you are. There's going to be local building codes and state codes and city codes and so on that you have to follow. And going back, 10 or 20 years to when this all really began, the electrical utilities were very concerned that if you have solar panels on the roof of your house, say, if the grid power goes down, like after a storm like we're having today, if the power goes out, the utility has to send crews out to fix the wires. And if half the people on the block have solar panels that are generating electricity and putting it into the grid, it could be a danger for the utility workers because they think the power's off, but it's not, that kind of thing. So the rules that have been developed for when you connect buildings to the grid basically mean that when the grid shuts down, your solar system has to shut down. And that feature is built into many of the inverters. Now more recently, it's become possible you have to install some extra equipment, sometimes batteries, although you don't have to have batteries, that allow you, like if the grid power goes down, you need a little switch that kind of disconnects your building from the grid, and then your solar panels can turn on and power what's in the building without creating any safety issue. So we wanted to do that with River House, but we didn't. It's a bit of a long story. We started designing a long time ago. There was some extra cost for that purpose, but it's the kind of thing that would be very easy to add to River House to allow that to happen. And I think definitely, I hope that we can do that as soon as possible.
All right, do you have a question?
Yes, so I was concerned about the recycling of solar panels. I understand that some of them have substances like lead or arsenic, and there's, as we start moving towards this mode of energy more, I do have a concern that the old solar panels are not going to be able to be recycled to make new ones, and a lot of the new ones are not necessarily made in the greenest of ways. So going into the future, how do you think we are going to handle solar power recycling or solar panel recycling?
Well, that's a great question. I could answer quickly, and if AJ wants to chime in. No, you're right. It's a big issue, and the fact is that most solar panels are not very easy to recycle. There are efforts underway to begin to require this kind of thing. Like Europe tends to be a bit ahead of us in terms of regulating things like the recyclability of products and that sort of thing. But in the US, the kind of Department of Energy, as I know, been sponsoring research and development or adaptations of solar manufacturing processes to make recycling easier, that kind of thing. I mean, one thing that is a bit of a problem in the US is that we actually make very few solar panels here anymore. So now we're pretty much reliant on what we get from mostly China, but other parts of the world, mostly in the Far East. But yes, I think there is a regulatory movement towards requiring that solar panels be more easily recyclable, and then a requirement to actually do it. But basically, that's not that we're not there yet on that, and we need to get there.
Thank you.
AJ, did you have anything you wanted to add or respond?
Sure. I just thought it was a good question. Couldn't help my initial reaction, but no, I mean, I think that I think Greg really touched on the majority of things. I know there's also an issue with battery storage in terms of solar and improving the battery life of I guess solar panels in such a way that they might be able to last a little bit longer and then can be in use for a longer period of time. But yeah,
I was gonna add one more thing to that, which is that, in terms of storing energy, I think it would be, one of the safer options. I know we have, lithium ion batteries, which are right now not so safe, and there's ones that are UL approved and ones that are not UL approved. I think that in the case of energy storage panels, looking into substances like sodium ion, which generally are much safer and can be much more ethically sourced, made of elements that are much more abundant, I think would be a good option going forward. They're also more resistant to heat and cold.
And actually, one point to add to that is that, you know, lithium ion batteries were so revolutionary for a number of reasons. We didn't really have them just a few years ago, and the main kind of unique quality that they brought to the, say, like electric car market and electric bicycles and so on, is they're lightweight. You know, before, like, if you look at a car battery that you have in your car, it's a very, very heavy thing. So that type of battery technology has tremendous advantages for mobility, but for buildings and stationary applications, that doesn't really matter so much. So the lightweight that is, so that actually opens up other kinds of battery technologies that I think in the future may be less expensive and last longer, and, you know, use more available materials and that kind of thing, without having the need to be so lightweight. In a building, it doesn't really matter so much.
Does anybody else have questions?
Other questions, wind questions? Oh. Anyone before Isabel?
No, okay. So I have two questions. Well, of course, I'll think of much more as I'm asking them, but my first question would be more career-based. Was there like a certain experience you had, and this goes for both of you, that kind of launched your interest in your career path that you're on?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go first real quick. I did the Hutton Junior Fisheries Biology program when I was a rising senior in high school, and it was just 8-week paid internship that I got to study out at Stony Brook University, Southampton, and for the most part, not gonna lie, it was cleaning tanks all day, doing grunt work and things along those lines, but just being in a lab setting around people that were doing active research and being able to participate in different moments for that hands-on research at such a young age, I think was pretty transformative for me in terms of shifting my academic and professional interest to be more geared toward the sciences, and then pursuing further internships in college as well was I think pretty significant.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm a bit older than most of the rest of you, so I began my career quite a while ago, but I was very fortunate to be in touch with people doing research on photovoltaics and the sort of early companies involved in the photovoltaic market and that kind of thing. And to me, you know, studying architecture as I was graduating, it just seemed to me that, solar panels most of them are pieces of glass, like, two pieces of glass laminated together with a couple wires coming out the back. And glass happens to be one of the most common building materials that we use for good reason. It's very durable, it's transparent, and not that expensive and so on. So it just seemed to me when I was finishing up my architectural studies that it was an obvious kind of relationship or symbiotic relationship between, why not take a glass solar panel and use it like a building material. So that was sort of the light bulb moment for me, and it really has created all kinds of opportunities over the years because at that time not that many architects were working this way. And so I guess I would just say that whatever you do, you know, whatever studies you pursue or opportunities you come across for work or, you know, internships and so on, to sort of keep your eyes and ears open for the potential for how, you know, sustainability issues like regarding energy, which is the solar thing really, or wind or whatever, how does that relate to whatever else you want to do, whether it is design or planning or engineering or policy and that kind of thing, because, you know, all these issues are related and tied together. And if you kind of move forward with your eyes open and try to kind of keep in mind all of these factors and how they are all needed for sustainability, you will very likely find interesting opportunities as you move forward in your own careers.
Thank you. That the ending section of your statement actually goes really well with my next question, which would be like, if you had advice for yourself when you were just starting out in your career, or high school, if you were still in high school, what would you say? And stuff like that.
AJ, why don't you go first? I'm so far away from high school. I'm having to think about that one.
Sure thing. I would say that no matter the opportunity, whatever it is that you're interested in, I think Greg put it best. Keep your eyes and ears open. Try to remain open-minded, because sometimes an opportunity may present itself that's seemingly not so interesting, but you never know the kinds of people that you may meet, and the conversations that can begin there, which can always open up doors. But then also the experiences that you may have. You know, you might find, I really don't like collecting water quality data, and I don't want to do this for a long period of time. And so it's worth it to pursue opportunities, even if they may not seem the most exciting and exactly what it is that you would like. It may help you elucidate or better clarify what you truly are passionate about and interested in. And it's always worth it, I think, to pursue those things that are soul nourishing and fulfilling.
I'll second that. And, you know, I guess I would just say that, especially if we're talking about issues around sustainability, whether it's renewable energy or any of the other many issues that go into sustainability, that it's at this stage in the world, you know, the need to do all those things and implement all those things is just becoming more and more apparent. I mean, we're in a crisis, really. And, you know, so we have to deal with things as if it was a crisis. But I think that that is not necessarily the best way or only way to look at it. I mean, to me, the many profound solutions that are needed and are not yet developed to all these issues are creative solutions. And, you know, if you can do anything creative with your life, it's a good thing, and it's hopefully going to be, you know, it will pay well, but it'll also be fun, you know, and rewarding. And so I think, you know, sort of approaching career issues in that way, it's, you know, look for what is needed, but also what is interesting and what is fun.
Thank you so much. Do you guys have any other questions? No, it's okay. Go ask.
Adapt to new ways of practicing renewable energy? Because I know a lot of people are used to like doing things a certain way. Most companies also don't want to give up certain ways because they know that means like less money for them. So how do they think massive corporations and regular people will adapt to doing this?
Did you guys get that?
Sorry, I couldn't quite make it out. Maybe.
But did you want me to repeat it? Okay, so
Yeah, please.
she basically asked, since this is if I understood it correctly, since the need to change our ways of being into like circular modes of production or more sustainable ways is so adamant and so urgent, but so many people, especially companies, are so not willing to do that. How long can you, what your guess would be for humans to successfully adapt? Is that the question? Yeah.
Oh, that's a big one. And you know what? I'm going to go first if you don't mind, because I actually have to sign off in like 2 minutes. But yeah, that's the obstacles are many and very entrenched. But you know, necessity has a way of prevailing. You know, it's like the fact that people still today don't acknowledge the reality of the issues we face is kind of amazing, with all the, you know, evidence that we see and feel personally every single day. So I guess I would not be discouraged by the you know, resistance to change and so on. And I mean, I guess my personal sense is that, you know, we are not meeting the current sustainable development guidelines. We are not meeting the, you know, Kyoto targets and so on. But hopefully, you know, the trends are kind of hopefully in the right direction. You know, I mean, even though we've had setbacks in terms of policy, the fact that the cost, say, of renewable energies has come down much faster than almost anybody predicted is that the simple reality of the economics is making it more and more of a no-brainer to use these things. So I guess my feeling is we're going to have probably a few rough years ahead of us, but that reality will prevail, and we're going to do what we have to do. So I think the world, hopefully, you know, your generation is going to inherit a world that can be managed. You know, it's going to be more difficult in many ways than my world was, but I wouldn't give up hope yet. So anyway, thanks. I've got to run. All the best.
Thank you.
All right. AJ, did you want to answer that as well?
Sure. I think Greg made some really good points. It can be super difficult to incentivize larger companies that, you know, can maybe avoid or negate some of those costs of renewable energy because of their own self-interest. And I think his point about necessity was crucial. It will come to a point where quite literally they'll eventually come to be losing money from not relying more on these renewable practices. And so hopefully with enough time, you know, necessity will dictate that a conversion is made. But I think it's one of those things that it's super difficult to kind of incentivize a societal shift wherein the relationship we have with our planet is one that is more sustainable and healthy on the individual level, and then on greater kind of sub-societal levels like we see with corporations. And I think one of the biggest things that will drive that conversion or that change is that it's needed, right? You know, we won't be able to sustain the activities that are currently going on, especially at the corporate or commercial scales, for much longer. And so it's kind of, you know, when push comes to shove, more or less. But it is encouraging to see. I think there are increasing trends at least within the U.S. And Western Hemisphere, increasing trends in reliance on renewables. And as we, you know, have projects go into implementation and they fail or succeed, and we begin to learn more and have more of a standardized approach, we'll be able to ideally increase our reliance over time, and we'll see a nice upward trend, hopefully. But yeah.
Thank you. So if we don't have any more questions, I was wondering if we could ask a couple more fish-related questions, just because you what? Yeah, just because as we were looking at some of the fish, I don't know if you have any more questions.
Oh, I had one more question.
Of course, go ahead.
So I was also interested in seeing more, when we're talking about renewable energy, the discussion, I guess it's not so much a question, but statement, discussion of geothermal energy and its possibilities, because there's geothermal heating, which is the pipes into the ground, and the ground essentially is less affected by the weather than the environment side of it, and it helps cool a building down during the summer, keep it warmer during the winter. But I'm also interested in the possibility of seeing our grid more connected to, where there is volcanic activity underground, having the pipes necessary to get the water vapor up that is heated by volcanic activity underground, and then coming up as steam and turning the wheels of the turbine, which produces electricity. It's a source of renewable energy that I would like to see more discussed in environmental circles, which it's just something I would like to see a little bit more. So that's a question, mistake, I apologize. But I would like to get your opinion on geothermal if you have one.
No, yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest limitations for geothermal energy is some of the inherent volatility that comes with it. So it can be kind of difficult, I think, both in terms of the expense of developing instrumentation that would be able to reliably convert geothermal energy to our existing power grids. I think there's a conversion of energy issue there. And then I also think that the volatility of it. So not necessarily being able to rely on a consistent stream of, say, volcanic activity or of water vapor, and then being able to turn that into steam. I think that's one of the things where, if it gets to be too hot or too volatile, having instrumentation that can deal with the variability that would be seen in terms of geothermal energy fluctuations is one of the biggest things that kind of holds it back. But there are some existing technologies, I'm pretty sure, in Europe and in Asia that are successfully using geothermal energy. And like you mentioned, we've managed to more or less do so successfully in terms of the heating and cooling of buildings. But that, I think, you can utilize a significantly lower amount. Whereas if we were to get geothermal energy hooked up to local power grids and stuff, I think you would require a bit more of a significant energy input, and the volatility of the energy and its conversion poses some inherent limitations.
We learned a lot, like oysters can be used to filter water. So do you think that just adding oysters to water would be enough to fix the water problem? Or do you think there's more that we have to do?
Yeah. Okay. So this is literally my bread and butter because I'm working with and growing oysters right now. Yeah. So short answer, yes, 110%. We actually are doing a project for a bay out in Eastern Long Island, Shinnecock Bay, and friends of mine that I work with in the lab are growing oysters out, and they're putting them on shells because oysters like to grow on a hard surface, particularly calcium carbonate, which is what most animals that have a shell, it's what they build their shell out of. And oysters love settling on those clam shells, and then we deploy them out in the bay. And it's kind of, fingers crossed, hope it works out. And by and large, at least from some friends of mine who have done population surveys, it does work. They not only do they help to improve water quality by filtering the water, but they are providing structures that a lot of other organisms can really benefit from. I mean, fish, crabs, all sorts of different species that used oyster reefs as kind of a nursery, so that they, once they get to a big enough size that they can avoid predation, they'll go out and do their own thing within the water body, or even make trips out to the ocean if they're anadromous. But yeah, short answer, 110%. Dropping oysters in the water work. If so long as they stick, it works wonders.
Great. Does anybody have like some other questions like that? I remember a couple questions that we were have when we were looking at some of the fish and crabs. I sent you photos that we caught in the fish traps. Does anyone remember some of those questions? Okay, I do. So we basically caught 3 blue crabs, but we noticed the difference between the blue crabs coloring in that we caught and the blue crabs that we saw like online, where the ones that we caught were a lot. Do you guys remember what they looked like?
Or like more colorful.
The ones we caught were less.
Oh, yeah, that's.
So the ones we caught were less colorful. They still had blue like a bit on their claws and their appendages, but it wasn't that like striking blue that you see. Is there a reason or like environmental reason or age reason for a difference in coloration for traps?
Sure. So I would be most inclined to say that that's a like local environment related cause. Typically speaking, like shellfish in general, you'll see varied colorations as a result of the kind of sediment and stuff that they're living in. Some clamshells, for example, will be darker in coloration if they're living in anoxic or really low oxygen conditions. And I would imagine you would see something similar with crabs. So depending on what water quality may be like in that particular area, you may have perhaps a dulling of some of the color that would come through. Also, depending on the age of the crab, could also be related to, actually, yeah, it could be related to age, because if they're older, you might notice that the colors have begun to fade a bit over time, because they're usually more vibrant when they're younger. But yeah.
Correlate for crabs?
Pardon?
Do size and age correlate for crabs and other crustaceans?
Yes. The larger they are, the older they are, because they'll actually shed their shells when it's time for them to get bigger.
For blue crabs, do the bigger crabs like attack small crabs?
Yeah, blue claws actually, they are cannibalistic. They will 110% eat each other if they're in the same environment. It's a crab eat crab world.
So one of my students was like, we released them together, and I was like, well, we released them into the river, which is really big. Maybe they won't eat, but I was surprised we caught 2 blue crabs in one fish trap, and they weren't eating each other. And maybe it was like the stress. It was maybe the stress of being in a trap that also, but also we were interested because, so I used hot dogs as bait for the fish trap because I was told that quote crabs love hot dogs. And we also saw there were mummichog and these the moon jellies as well in the bait in the traps, and we might have seen one of the crabs start to eat, what was it, a hot dog or a jellyfish. We were wondering what like stressors or behavioral, this is my question, behavioral changes that can happen when crabs and other like aquatic animals are transferred into like a lab setting. Like, do they move around a lot? Do they try to escape? That kind of thing.
So I unfortunately have had several crabs escape from my my cages that I built for research. They are inventive escapees. They do not like to be corralled. They will fight back and do so voraciously. And, they're also omnivorous, so they will eat really just about, with the exception I think of, okay, maybe it's not fair to say that they're completely omnivorous, but they will eat just about anything that they really can get their claws around, and in a safe manner. And so they're not particularly picky. I'm surprised that it was picking at jellyfish. I've not known crabs do that, but at the same time, it's not like they really have to worry about stinging themselves or anything because they have that hard exoskeleton. So I suppose, were they so inclined? Like I guess they would. But yeah.
Did any crab, have you been pinched by a crab?
Yeah, definitely be safe handling blue claws. They can break bone, and even cut right down to the bone. So thankfully haven't had a pinch that bad, but I definitely have a couple scars. So with caution.
Let's see, any other questions? Do you guys have any other questions? No?
Any questions about wind or offshore wind?
Oh, yeah, what AJ's studying. So he's studying offshore wind's effects on marine life. What are offshore wind's effects on marine life?
They're highly variable. I mean, there's a lot of impact because hydrodynamic patterns are being changed because you have these super big structures in the offshore environment that weren't there before. So the way water flows, and then what that water transports, whether it's nutrients or even, very small larval life for all sorts of different species, that's going to be entirely altered. So a particular region in the offshore environment may see some serious local changes in the abundances of different species. But also it's unknown, right? Like it's an area that's people are doing research on. The effect of marine noise, is it really a well-studied area? And there's a lot of bioacoustic work being done to see how noise from offshore wind construction and then also operation is affecting whales, and other cetaceans, their flagship species that get a lot of funding and attention because they're smart and sonar's cool. Yeah. And but at the same time, it's completely fair to say that their migration routes and the areas in which they come to feed when in warmer months, it's totally going to be impacted by offshore wind. And so trying to manage offshore wind operations in such a way that we're being mindful of that is important. Like I know there's talk about having offshore wind turbines operate during specific parts of the year that don't overlap with certain species of whale migrations or certain breeding or feeding events that we know happen in late spring, early summer months. Things like that are not the most significant, but can potentially make some form of a beneficial change in terms of not completely altering the marine environment for these animals that have been calling it home for millions of years.
Thank you so much for answering. No other questions? No? Okay, we good?
All right, cool. Thank you guys for having me and everything. And if you have any questions, reach out to Isabella. She has my email, whether it's internships or just a question about some marine science that you maybe didn't get to ask or anything like that. I'm happy to help provide resources and talk about whatever.
Great, thank you.